What's your baseball philosophy? What got you so far?
I think you just got to kind of just try to stick with it. I mean, baseball beats you down sometimes, but you just go out there and have fun, and try to relax and try to not press too much.
Now, do you approach pitchers individually, or do you have one style that you approach everybody the same?
For the most part, there's I have my approach that I like to take in, but depending on what the pitcher has when he's throwing, that'll put a little bit of a wrinkle in it.
Now, the first round draft picks, they said, man, these guys have all the talent in the world. But once they start getting organizations, they're getting passed up by guys in the later rounds. Have you seen that over the years, and why does that happen?
I mean, once the draft is kind of a really subjective thing, but once you get into organization, you start playing, things start sorting itself out, and the draft is just a projection, so it's kind of hard to tell, for sure who's going to do the best, who's not going to do the best. So things just, eventually just sort themselves out.
Now, in spring training, the A's and every club brings more guys in to compete with you at the major league level. How do you approach that?
You can't really worry about it. You just kind of go out there and just do your thing, try to play as best as you can. A lot of the off-the-field stuff and the roster decisions you can't control. So if you try to worry about it, then you'll lose what you do on the field, and then things start passing by.
Now, baseball has ups and downs in the organization. There's injuries and there's roster moves and stuff like that. Have you ever contemplated not playing baseball anymore?
Not really. Luckily, I've been pretty fortunate to have an opportunity to play. So for me, the more you start thinking about life after baseball, all of a sudden it starts passing you up and things start speeding up, and that's baseball's tough enough as it is. So. Like I said, fortunately, I've had a lot of opportunities to play at the level I've been at. So,
what are some things you learned about pro baseball the hard way that nobody told you about?
For the most part, it's just the grind of the season. Even as much as people have said, how tough it can be playing so many games in a row, like you can't really prepare yourself for that until you go through it. So playing 144 games in 150 days is just it's tough. It wears you down both physically and mentally. That was definitely the hardest part.
Now, once you sign a contract, obviously you're a professional baseball player. But was there a moment before that when you knew you were going to be a professional?
I started to get the idea that I'd have a chance to play professionally about the summer after my sophomore year of college, going into my final year in college, thinking that I'd have a chance, hopefully at the next level, as long as I continue to do well my last year. And, but even then, it's still like you never know for sure. Injuries happen, anything happens. So you kind of try to not take it for granted until you finally get your name called for the draft.
You read the sports pages and where Baseball America ranks you and what they write about you?
No, I try to stay away from that. That only fills your head with things you can't control, and I feel like it kind of takes you away from what you got to do.
Does people tell you, mom and dad call and say, hey, guess what I read about you? Or?
My parents pay attention to it a lot more than I do. But they've over the years, they know that I don't like to hear it. They know that they kind of keep that away. And we can talk about baseball, but more of what happens in the game and things like that. But for the most part, we try to keep that off.
How do you handle the fans, people yelling and screaming?
For the most part, it doesn't affect you. At least it doesn't affect me. When you get into, we've had some pretty big crowds, but when you're on the field, you're focused on the game. And most times people try to be funny and they try to say things. It's just repeated from other people. So there's very few things that you actually pick up. You laugh at or whatever. So it's for the most part, it's not really a factor.
How about the umpires? How do you handle the umpires?
They're another part of the game you can't control. So the more you try to focus on that, the less energy you have focusing on what you can control. So you just got to take it. Whatever they do, you just move on and just focus on your at bat or your pitching or whatever it is.
What would you tell a kid about professional baseball?
I would recommend it for any kid. I mean, it's awesome. Obviously, it beats doing what I would be doing right now, whatever that may be, in school still, in the office and whatever. So, as tough as tough as it can be, it's still, it beats doing anything else, that's for sure.